Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you all are doing great and staying safe. If you are new to this channel, kindly do subscribe to get an updated notification on the DevOps cloud or any cloud certification related stuff when it gets uploaded on my YouTube channel. Before we start with today's video, if you are looking to learn what is configuration management, why Ansible is so popular to among the other configuration management tools like Chef, Puppet, kindly do watch these videos uploaded on my YouTube channel. Moving to the main content of this video, if you are one of like me who wanted to automate the day-to-day stuff like start and stop of your application services, or wanted to monitor the application services up and running or not, also wanted to install the web server on the Linux machine, or also wanted to copy the file from one source to another destination, then you have come to the right place. Doesn't this seems to be exciting? Yes, we can automate all this by writing a simple playbook in Ansible which uses YAML language, which is YAML markup language. So without any delays, let's get started with writing our first playbook, where we are going to use certain modules like command, shell, script, and other modules as well. So let's get started. It is important that you understand the concept of playbook. So in simple terms, the playbook is nothing but the list of steps which you want to execute on multiple servers or a particular machine. The playbook can help you to start the service, stop the service, deploy an application, or check the status of services, install the latest patches, which can be Oracle patch, Linux patch, Windows patches, etc. The playbook is nothing but a file which is written in the YAML language and is understandable by an Ansible machine. So the extension of your file should be .yaml or YML. Any one of these extension will be okay for you to basically write the playbook and is executed by an Ansible machine. So as you see in the screen that there I want to deploy the package, for an example called HTTP package, on multiple server. What I will do is write a simple playbook so that Ansible can execute that on multiple servers rather than logging manually on those servers and executing the command repetitively. It's better I write a playbook. Now let's understand the ways to write a playbook or a YAML file. So we have three ways in which we can write a YAML file. The first one is the key value pair. If you see on the screen, the left hand side we have a key and on the right side we have a value. In this case, we have a key called as a product, and product has a value called as coffee. Similarly, we have the key called as a brand, and the value is the Starbucks. And the last one is number of cups, and the value for that key is 1. You can write the YAML file in another way called as a list, which in simple term is nothing but an array. If you have used the array in Unix, X, or Java or any other programming language, the similar way you can write the array or a list in YAML file. So in this case, we have a list called as a milk, and it has the value called as scheme, half and half, and whole. Moving to the last one, which we call as a mapping or a dictionary. So I have a dictionary which has a key value pair and which can has the list in it. All I need to do is group that with a particular name. So in this case, we have something called as a coffee, and the coffee has the key value pair as well as a list. So the key value pair in this case is name called as a Starbucks. Milk has a whole number of cups I need is one, and the list here is a favor. So you can have a coffee of almond flavor, you can have a coffee of coconut flavor, you can have a coffee of blueberry flavor. I hope you got a basic understanding of how to write a YAML file in different ways. Now, before we move ahead with the playbook, it's important that you validate your syntaxes. So you can basically use multiple editors to write a YAML file. The simplest and the easiest way and the free is Notepad. The second one is a Visual Studio Code. And the third one, you need to install a package called as Atom, which will basically help you to write a YAML file and validate it. Now, before we move ahead with the example of the playbook, I would like to focus on one of the module which is commonly used in while writing a YAML file or writing a playbook. That module is the command, and it has multiple submodules in it. So the command is nothing but it basically executes a command on a remote node. Tomorrow, if you want to execute a command called as ls in Unix or dir in Windows, you can use the command module. Shell is nothing but it is basically in terms of executing your commands on the nodes. So if you I want to execute a shell which basically changes the directory or installs the http service, and I have list of commands, I can put it into a shell and use a shell module to execute that particular shell script. Another way of executing the script is a module called as script. It basically runs a local script on your remote node after transferring it. Moving to the next module in the command is the Telnet, which you know everyone uses it to log into a particular machine. So here we have the Telnet here executes a low down and dirty telnet command. Another way, if you want the user to not to basically user to execute and command and response to the prompt, then we have something called as a accept, and I will go through these all submodules in detail in the upcoming slide. So let's first start with the command module here. So the command module is nothing but it takes the command name followed by the list of space delimited arguments. The arguments can be creates, removes, change directory after you have specified the command. For an instance, if you only want to run a command if a certain file does not exist, use this. You will see an example down here. For the Windows, if you are executing the playbook related to the Windows, it's basically you use the module called as a win underscore command. So the example of the command can be simple. The command module followed by the command what you want, and then as I mentioned, it can be separated by the arguments, which in this case is creating the path to the database. On the right hand side, you will see the list of parameters which command can take. So it has an argv, which is nothing but passes the command has list rather than a string. Then we have chdr, which is nothing but changing a directory. Then you have cmd, which is another way of writing the command, and it another way of passing the argument to the command module is create, freeform, removes, standard in, and the list goes on. In the simplest way, if you want to pass the arguments, you can use args followed by the command. So in this example, we have a command which is executing a script, and it has the argument 1 and 2, and I want to execute that only when this command gets executed. It basically creates the file and it changes the directory. So I hope you got the basic understanding of writing, how to write a command module. Moving to the next one we discussed was the shell. So if you want to execute any shell script, you use this module called as shell. The shell module basically takes the command followed by a list of space delimited arguments. It is almost exactly like the command module, but it runs the command through a shell on the remote node, which we have gone through in the previous slide. So in this case, if I want to execute any shell script, I will execute using the shell module here. So the example here is shell some script name, and then I'm redirecting the output of that shell script to the txt file. Okay, moving to another one is another example. If you see, this command will change the working directory to some directory only when the sum directory does not exist. So in this case, I'm executing some script.sh and I'm checking if the sum directory does not exist, then only you execute this shell, otherwise do not execute. And at the same time, I'm creating a file called sumlog.txt where I'm basically creating a log file as well. Moving to the next one, we have something called as a script, which is another advanced version of the shell. So the script module basically takes the name of the script which you want to execute, and it is again followed by the space delimited arguments. Okay, so this module is basically also supported on the Windows machine. So the given script will basically process through the shell environment on the remote node. So whatever default shell is present on the remote node, it will basically execute using that. So the simplest way to execute or to run the script is basically calling the module script followed by the script name and some arguments as listed here. So let's understand, say suppose for an example, I want to write the I want to execute the shell script or a Python script using a version 3. I will basically simply call it using the script module, the Python script, and the argument, and in that there is something parameter called as an executable, and I will specify by which version I want that script to be executed. So here in this case, I'm executing using the Python version 3. If you see on the left right hand side, it has the list of parameters like chdr, we have cmd, creates, decrypt, executable. Remember we talked about that, how I want to execute that script from which path. So it is mentioned here. So moving to the another submodule in the command is the telnet, and we all know what is the telnet. Tomorrow if I want to log into a remote machine, I will use the telnet command or ssh command. So this basically telnet command is mostly used for enabling the SSH on the devices that only have a telnet enable default. So the example here is when I'm logging to any machine, I will basically enter the username and the password. And now when I'm logging to the remote node and I want a user to basically have the prompt, in this case, I'm using the username and other stuff. So I hope you got the basic going through the playbook example or the playbook which I have written in the YAML language. So I have written the playbook on the in the notepad, and now I want to make sure that I follow the proper syntaxes and syntaxes get highlighted. So all I need to do is go to the language tab and select from here is the YAML. The moment I select that, it basically highlights all the keys and the values, and also basically make sure that the indentation is proper. So the first line here is to know whenever you write an YAML file, it's basically you basically give a name or write a comment what this YAML file or what this playbook is doing. In my case, it's pretty simple. I'm going to basically install the NJX and basically check the status of that NJX. So moving to the next is, remember we have something called as dash, and that is nothing but a list, and basically giving, and this YAML is having that. So moving to the third line, I'm basically using a key value pair. So the first one is the name, which is nothing but a key, and it has a value called ngx. The second one is the host. The host is nothing on which servers you want to basically install the ngx, and this host in this case I've put has all. So whatever the hosts or the server IP or whatever is declared in my inventory file will basically get installed on all those hosts or all those servers. Moving to the next one is become. So become, we are basically making it true. Remember in YAML there is something called as a privilege permissions, because we want basically Ansible machine to execute this with a root privileges or the user which I want. So I'm making it has become true. Moving to the next one is the tasks. Now, this is the main session where you basically want to list down the list of activities or list of tasks, what you want your Ansible to do when it execute this playbook on the multiple servers or remote nodes. So the first task here I'm doing is basically installing the NJX. And to install the NJX, I'm using a module called as yum. And if you see, I want to basically install the latest version of the NJX. So I'm basically using the state as NJX. Moving to the next one, now once I've done with the install, I want to basically start. So I'm basically using a module called service, and this is where I'm basically making the state has started, because once it's installed, I want to basically start it. Now, the next one, I want to enable the NGX. For that, I'm basically using the module called as a service, and in that I'm using something called as a enable, and I've made that has the value has yes. Now, once I have installed it, I have started it, I want to check the version of it. All I can do it using the command module, which we have gone through in the previous slide. So all I'm doing is executing a command module with we're calling it as njx minus v, which is basically checking the version of njx package. Now, I want to basically copy the file from one host to another host. I can use it by using the copy command, copy module. In this case, I will specify the module copy, and in that I will specify the arguments as source and destination. Moving to the next one, if I want to change the directory, sorry, there is a typo error, so let me modify it. I want to change the directory. Remember, I can do it by using the shell command or a shell module. So here I'm using a shell module, and in that we have gone through, there is something called as argument cmd, and I'm basically doing that by in that there is an argument called chdir, and in that I'm basically using that args, and I'm using the parameter called as chdir, and I'm changing the directory to opt. So if there is a once this directory is changed, it will basically execute this command. Or moving to the next one, now I want to check the status of NGX. So we will basically use the command module, and in that we have an parameter or an argument called as a CMD, and I'm basically checking that using systemctl status NGX, and basically I'm checking it. I'm forcing the command to execute using NGX user. Sorry, there is a typo error. I will just correct it. Moving to the next one, tomorrow, if I want to basically save the output of the shell, I can do that using something called as a register. So all I'm doing is calling a module called as a shell, and in that I'm executing date as a command, and I'm storing the output of that in a register. So It's register is nothing but a variable. Tomorrow, if I want to execute any of the shell and I want to store the output of that, I will use the register. And then I'm printing a message called today's date has CMD, date CMD. Moving to the next one, tomorrow if I want that shell, I want to execute a shell using the bash. I do not want the command to execute using a default shell which is sh. I want to force it to use the bash. So I will basically use something called has and shell, and in that I'm going to use an argument called has an executable. Now, the next one, tomorrow, if I want to execute the multiple shells, multiple lines, right? So in the shell, we have echo command, we print certain lines, and I want to execute that simultaneously. I will use something called as a pipe. Remember, the pipe helps you to write the multi lines, and that's why I've used here the pipe. Another important thing is tomorrow, if you want to execute the multiple packages, you can do that by writing a simple list. Remember, the list, this is another way of writing the YAML file. In this, I'm basically using the YUM module, and in that I have given the list of VSFTP package to be installed and unzip package to be installed, and basically I'm checking the state has present. If it is present, do not go. If it is not present, then execute this. I hope you got an overview of how to write a simple playbook to execute on the multiple servers. Moving to the next important thing is, if you want to validate the syntaxes and this YAML which you have written is correct or not, there is a free online validator tool. I'm going to basically paste the link of it in the video description. And if you see here, there is something called as a validate. If I click validate here, it says the input YAML is a valid YAML. And say, for an example, I miss any of the syntax or indentation, and if I click on validate, it will basically give you an error. Here, if you see, it says bad indentation of the mapping entry. So this way, this tool helps you to basically validate the YAML file, and at the same time it basically highlights the syntaxes and other stuff. I hope this will help you to basically kickstart with your first playbook here in the YAML language. Thank you. I hope this video was quite informative and gave you a basic understanding of how to write the playbook for automating your day-to-day stuff. In the upcoming sessions, we are going to learn about how to use the variables to get your data stored in the variable by executing the certain commands. So until then, stay tuned and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to get an updated notification on such stuff. At the same time, kindly do help me with your comments, because your comments motivates me to improve my content and come up with such videos. Until then, take care. Bye bye.